All right, let's talk GME. So, very interesting predicament GME is in right now. Two ways this could turn, and both of them are very different from each other. So let's jump into it. So first of all, by now, I hope everybody knows what an airplane setup is. An airplane setup is when any trigger comes down to a different trigger and basically airplanes off it. So like here, the hourly trigger, which is this purple line here, comes down to the daily trigger, and as soon as it lifts off it, that's called an airplane setup. And you could see this explosive move to the upside from 33 to 34 in only a couple of days. This doesn't just work with the hourly and the daily trigger. It works, here's one we played today on Apple. It works on the 1 minute trigger and the 5 minute trigger as well. So let's take a look at Apple for a second. Right here you can see, let's remove some of the noise. So right here we can see that the 1 minute trigger came down to the 5 minute trigger. They got really close to each other, within 10 cents from each other. And then as the 1 minute trigger lifted off the 5 minute trigger, price made a really nice move to the upside. So airplane setups work on pretty much all time frames, and they're one of the most powerful setups in Anemoi, which Anemoi is basically telling us that the algos have already decided to take price up. So, we saw this really nice airplane on GME here, and you can notice that the hourly trigger did fall below the daily trigger for a bit, but it resolved bullishly, and that's still considered an airplane setup. If we just look at a couple more examples really quickly to show that, this works all over the place, not just in GME. So here we have one on AMC. The hourly trigger comes down to the daily trigger, and when it resolves bullishly, when it comes off it to the upside, it leads to a huge price spike. And you can see again, the hourly trigger sold a teeny drop below the daily trigger, but once it resolves bullishly, it explodes to the upside. Now you'll notice the same pattern happening in all these situations. What you notice is that the hourly velocity, you get bullish divergence at the bottom. So when here's your most extreme negative hourly velocity print, negative 0.5. And when price sold lower, you can see that the hourly velocity did not make a new low, which is called bullish divergence. Price making new lows, but negative velocity does not agree, telling us that buyers are stepping in really strong at these levels, and that the most likely scenario is that price will lift to the upside, which we saw right here. If we look at maybe one or two more, we can look at SoFi. So SoFi right here, as price came down, the hourly velocity started to diverge. You could see here's your most extreme negative print. Hourly velocity is negative 0.3, and then price made a lower low, but the negative hourly velocity did not, negative 0.2, and price made even another lower low. And as you can see, if I remove price, the hourly velocity was getting better and better while price was selling lower, telling us that buyers were stepping in really strong and they were going to be able to bring this back up. And then you see the hourly trigger come down to the daily trigger, resolve bullishly, and price moves from 630 to 827 in one day. Let's do one more example. We could look at Tilray. So for Tilray, yeah, it was right here. So the hourly trigger comes down to the daily trigger, resolves bullishly. So now let's get back to GME. And you can see that all these airplane setups are really powerful, and they lead to explosive moves to the upside. An airplane setup is just Anemoi telling us that, the algos are planning on taking the stock up right now. So we can see here, we don't have any clues necessarily that tell us that we are going to get this airplane setup, but we do have bullish hourly divergence, because when price was 25.11, the hourly velocity was negative 1.2, price made a lower low 25.08, and the hourly velocity was negative 1.1. So this is bullish divergence, telling us that buyers are stepping in really strong at this level, and they might be able to turn this through. So, there's also in Anemoi, there's trigger clusters. If price breaks through one trigger, right, if price breaks through the hourly trigger, that leads to an explosive push, and when price breaks through the daily trigger, it leads to an even more explosive push. When price sells through the hourly trigger, right, they're all acceleration levels. So here you can see price sold under the daily trigger and accelerated down fast. When price breaks through 2 triggers, and each trigger is an acceleration level, then you could expect the move to be double as explosive as if it was just breaking through 1 trigger. So if price can break through 26.30 and 26.35 tomorrow at the same time, not only will it get a really explosive push to the upside, but that would also result in an hourly trigger, daily trigger airplane, because if price breaks above these 2 levels, the hourly trigger will start curling up off the daily trigger, resulting in an airplane, and what we can expect from that move is a fast market attack straight up to the next trigger, which happens to be at 29.72, and the monthly trigger is at 29.86. Now, whatever I spoke about 2 trigger cluster on the hourly and the daily triggers, all the more so it is so much more powerful if price breaks through these 2 triggers at once. Now, because the velocity on the weekly level is still negative and on the monthly level is still negative, we don't necessarily expect a break above these triggers yet, but if price can complete this move back above 26.35 and 26.30, resulting in a fast market attack up here, even if it rejects next week, it'll set up way less negative weekly velocity. So you can see from here to here, the negative weekly velocity went from negative 5.7, now it's only negative 1.6. So GME has been doing a really good job of repairing negative weekly velocity. If GME can close the week near 29.72 and near 29.86, then it will completely repair the negative weekly velocity, allowing for a move straight through these 2 triggers, which, however powerful this move is, and it should be powerful, it should take us up to this level pretty fast. However powerful that move is, the 2 trigger cluster of only the hourly and the daily trigger, it should be a whole lot more powerful when price breaks through the monthly trigger and the weekly trigger at once. So that's the GME bull case. Now the bear case, obviously, is that price rejects these levels and comes back down, which will result in an hourly trigger, daily trigger cross, which is bearish, as we saw here. When the hourly trigger crossed down, price sold off. Here, when the hourly trigger crossed down, price sold off really hard. And here, when the hourly trigger crossed the daily trigger, price sold off. So if GME can't get back above this level early tomorrow, yeah, we are going to have to worry about some sort of sell off to the downside. But the bull case is that if price can break above here, then we can see a really fast market attack of the monthly trigger and the weekly trigger. Good luck, everyone, and I'll update you when there's anything to be updated.